The following is a presentation of SIRTOBA Media and COMI Media Incorporated.
Will J.J. Watt come out of retirement and return to the Texans? Will the addition of Odell Beckham Jr. pay dividends for the Dolphins? And will an undrafted rookie outperform Sam Howell at quarterback this season? All that and more on this edition of Total Football Talk. Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. I'm your co-host, Drew Willingham, along with the man, the myth, and the legend, Cole Johnson. Welcome back, brother.
Oh, thank you. And wow, what a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that, my man. I feel honored.
I'm trying, man. I cannot do the Tiny Tim quite like you can, and I've been practicing. I've been practicing out here, not on the streams, outside of the streams, but I'm bringing it into the streams today as we are here for episode 36 of Total Football Talk, here for this great edition covering the UFL's Week 6 recap. You know, the Panthers stay strong against the hungry Renegades, Cole, and we're going to get through that and a bunch more here on this edition. And with that being said, let's go ahead and take this into the Gridiron Scoop. And we'll know the opening drive and get us started with this past weekend's action.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Break.
And here with the opening drive, you know, it was another weekend of some lopsided action at football. And, you know, the Birmingham Stallions, the past 6 weeks have been an unstoppable team. Undefeated, plowing through this league, Cole, like they are, like, you know, taking prisoners left and right each and every week. You know, Adrian Martinez, 155 passing yards and a touchdown, along with, you know, the 9 carries, 138 yards. You know, the Stallions running backs, 99 rushing yards on 23 attempts and a touchdown by Ricky Person Jr. Kevin Austin, though, 4 receptions, 108 yards with a touchdown. And Marlon Williams, 4 receptions, 58 yards and 2 touchdowns for Adrian Martinez, you know, having a game of his career, you know, slinging 3 touchdowns in this past weekend. You know, looking at this game right here, along with Case Cook is underperforming a little bit, 115 passing yards and a touchdown. Troy Williams, who've been coming in relief action the past couple of weeks, 65 passing yards, a touchdown and an interception, along with the Showboats running backs, 59 rushing yards on 15 attempts. Dawood Davis, 5 receptions, 43 yards, with D Anderson's 1 reception for 34 yards and a touchdown. Didn't really contribute too much to this Memphis Showboats team as they were, you know, put up 21 points to the Stallions, 39 points. But looking at this team right here, Cole, you know, I did have a little bit of a typo on this one. He had 300 and some passing yards, did Adrian Martinez, and 3 touchdowns. Looking at the production here, is any team going to be able to stop this Birmingham Stallions team throughout this entirety of this season?
I would love to say yes, and the law of averages would say, yeah, there's going to be a team that's going to do something to stop this squad. But the way they're flowing, I really think not. I mean, I don't care what position you play on offense. When you can produce 300 passing yards and 200 rushing yards, you are happy. That is exactly what you want. You want supreme balance like that. And that is awesome. Uh, it's almost to the point where the coaching staff is going to have to invent ways to make the team understand. Well, you still have to work on this, and this to get even better than you already are. Because offensively, you can't get that. You can't get better than that. In the defense, yeah, you can say they didn't have to allow as many points as they did, but 3 sacks is nothing to sneeze at, and getting for takeaways is definitely nothing to sneeze at. So
No.
The Stallions are going well, but where I'm focused on. I'm focused on the 15 rush attempts for 59 yards with the Showboats. It wasn't as if they couldn't get the running game going. And I get that they were behind, they wanted to play catch up, but you still have to establish the run. You still have to establish it. But to answer the question that you posed, I don't think there is a team that, they may see defeat in this season, but I don't see a team that could probably unseat them as the possible champions, the first champions of the UFL, because they keep playing like this. You can't touch them. Over 500 yards on offense, 3 sacks and 4 takeaways. A defense, almost a perfect game. It would be a perfect game, of course, if they had a shutout. But almost a perfect game. Almost. And unfortunately, my partner is muted.
I hit the mute button because I coughed earlier. My apologies. But look, Showboats right here. First win of the season came in week 1, and they have lost 5 consecutive games in the past 5 weeks to go 1-5 right now. They are not looking good at this point. The Renegades are another team we'll talk about here in a little bit that definitely look a lot better than their record. But unfortunately, they don't have a win yet. But we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But looking at this right here, Adrian Martinez, 396 passing yards, 69 passing yards. 4 touchdowns is what he had in that typo that I had on the slate right there. But looking at that, that's his career high in the UFL right now, for 1. But for 2, this game was definitely lopsided from the start when you look at how it was. And the Stallions, I think the only team that can potentially give them a run would be the upcoming team they have this week, we'll get into, and that being the St. Louis Battlehawks, because 5-1, they're hot.
That'd be the team.
Look at how they're playing. It'd be a great matchup, and I think we're going to get one. We'll break that down here in a little bit. But looking at this next game right here, we have the Battlehawks and the Roughnecks. The Roughnecks fall to 1-5, open up 8 points in this game. The St. Louis Battlehawks, against the Roughnecks, 22 points put up the Battlehawks. 5-1 they're at on this point of the year. What are your thoughts when you think about how this team put up 255 passing yards by A.J. McCarron's 3 touchdowns, 1 interception? He's got 13 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for the season. The Battlehawks running backs, though, -5 rushing yards on 17 attempts. And no, Cole, that is not a typo. That is legit. -5 yards on 17 attempts. Hakeem Butler, though, was what saved him. 6 receptions, 134 receiving yards with 2 touchdowns, along with Ja'Cour Pearson's 5 receptions for 46 yards. The Battlehawks defense, 1 sack and a fumble recovery. That contributed, but it was mainly the receivers that definitely contributed, along with A.J. McCarron. Reed Sinnett, 135 passing yards. Definitely a reason why they only got 8 points on the board for the Roughnecks. Justin Hall, 6 receptions, 59 yards. He still stays somewhat hot, but that's not enough to help contribute when you got Cyril Grayson, the number 2 receiver on the day, 4 receptions, 22 yards. The Roughnecks running backs, though, they improved a little bit on the ground. Got to give them a little bit of credit. 83 rushing yards on 20 attempts with a touchdown by Mark Thompson. It's not terrible, but at the same time, it's not great. So, a lot they need to prove on. What are your thoughts when looking at this game right here?
Well, the Roughnecks are living up to their billing of being allergic to the end zone. They are by far the worst scoring team in the UFL, and it's not even funny. It's not even funny. It's not even close. But I'll give the Roughnecks defense credit. They forced the Battlehawks to scrap and claw, so they earned this victory, no question. And of course, it helps when you have an MVP candidate slinging the rock, and having a good good receiving performance from Hakeem Butler. That does help. But for the Roughnecks, they just have to find a way to be more offensively fluid. I just can't. I can't describe it in any other terms. I mean, look, the rush attempts in the yards, that's actually decent. I mean, that's actually acceptable. That's over 4 yards to carry. I can accept that. But they have to find ways to punch the ball in the red zone. I mean, they have to find more ways to get points on the board. They got to help that defense out. The defense is working as hard as they can. They can only do but so much. And as for the Battlehawks, how can I put this? It was a decent showing, but they can't play like this next week.
No, not at all. I mean, when you look at this team right here on possession, they had similar numbers there, but the Roughnecks could only muster 126 total yards on the day. And when you do that through 4 quarters, that's not going to get the ball in the end zone or sniff it anywhere close. They only had 1 red zone attempt. So looking at that right there, they had 1 rushing touchdown, which is what helped them get those points. Their quarterback play has been very subpar, and is the reason why they are 1-5 at this point.
100.
And St. Louis Battlehawks, AJ McCarron stays hot.
Mhm.
I mean, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions through 6 games. He's definitely making his case to be league MVP at this point. We got some comments here in the chat so far. We got Melvin in the house saying, "What's up, fellas?
What's up, man?
What's up, Melvin? Appreciate you tuning in." Got Sick Diggy also tuning in as always. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, he says.
Good evening to you, Sick.
It is definitely evening time where he is at. It was like 10:30 where he's at right now. Like
Close
6 hours ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Dante Hill says, "What's up, guys?" What's up, Dante? Glad you tuned in.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, -5 yards. That's some serious defense. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and they still won the game. Like that's how that's the wild thing. How often do you see a team? Yeah. How often do you see a team win with a -5 rushing yard total? I don't think I've ever seen that, to be honest, or recall it. I mean, it's possible.
It's been a minute since either I've seen it or I haven't seen it at all. But yeah, to win a game and have negative rush yards is one thing. To do it by double digits is yet another. And yeah, like I said, the Roughneck defense did their job for the most part. The offense just simply is not cutting the mustard.
Do you think a team having -5 rushing yards and winning, do you think that's a positive thing for this league or a negative thing? Like, because that's something that we don't see that often.
If more teams were struggling like this running the ball, I would say it's a negative. But considering I think this is an anomaly, I'll take that as a positive. I'll take that as this was a good defensive effort, and they came with a good game plan on defense to stop the run, and I would chalk it up as that. But I would say for the Battlehawks, I think they have to find more ways on the offensive line to help their running backs get holes and have them run through it somehow, and find some way that they can move the ball on the ground. Even if they have to deal with gadget plays, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I mean, heck, they got to do reversals, if they got to do flea flickers, whatever. But they got to find a way to get the ball on the ground and move it down the field, because AJ McCarron will thank the offensive coordinator later for that.
Yes. We talk about how they could be a potential threat to the Stallions, but they will not be a threat to them if they muster up yards like that this upcoming weekend. No. Like that is going to go south real quick if that's your production throughout 4 quarters of a game. This upcoming week, it's going to be ugly, but hopefully they can get some good practice this week and turn some things around with that. But it looks like you said, yeah, correct. It's almost 10:30 over here, so you call us what I thought about 6 hours ahead.
Yeah.
But, Six says, "Here's my question at Cole Sports. How much did the other team's offense botch their game?"
That's a good question. I think, to me, I don't really put the -5 rushing yards on the offensive line or the running backs as much as I do the offensive coordinator, because I think he had to go to the drawing board and And he has to understand that if you're going to attack a defense on the ground, you got to find the correct ways to do it. And it almost lends itself to the thought process of, I think this guy did not fully prepare his offense. And that's not a good thing to say about offense coordinator.
No, it's not. And just like it's not good to say about the things that they've got going on over there in Arlington, but we'll bring that up here shortly, that there could be some changes during this offseason, or I wonder if there's going to be some changes potentially before the season's over. There's only 4 weeks left of the regular season, but we'll get to that here in a second with this team. So next game we have here on the slate, got to look at the San Antonio Brahmas and the DC Defenders in DC. And, the Brahmas come into this game kind of hot, too. We were talking about them in the same category as the Battlehawks last week with how they've been producing over these first 5 weeks coming into week 6. And, this was kind of a lackluster game. It was more so important for the DC Defenders to get this victory this past weekend because they were 2-3 coming in. Their chances of making the playoffs, or at least a decent seed, even though it's not really a deep playoffs, but the chance of making it is greater if you win and you get 3-3 than you are at 2-4. Correct. Because teams like the Arlington Renegades could sneak in like that, but not the DC Defenders. If you fall to that, I don't think that they'd have a good chance. And they turn it around. They get 18-12 victory in this past weekend's game in DC. Jordan Ta'amu, though, 179 passing yards and 1 touchdown. Kelvin Harmon was that recipient of that touchdown. 8 receptions, 101 yards. He remains the MVP in the hot hands as the receiver, is helping this team towards those 3 victories. He's been a big part of that. The Defenders running backs, 115 rushing yards on 31 attempts. Probably one of the better rushing teams of the past weekend on 31 attempts. And a touchdown by Cameron Harris, who had a touchdown last week. So that's consecutive weeks with a touchdown. The Defenders defense, 2 sacks, 1 interception by Anthula Kelly with a fumble recovery as well by the defense. The play by Quentin Dormandy, 79 passing yards and a touchdown and interception. He was banged up in this game. The Defenders defense got their hands all over him and smacked him around a little bit. With those 2 sacks that they had, they were brutal on him. I mean, if you watch those highlights, John Lovett, 23 carries, 153 yards, though. He has been a shining ace for this Brahmas team, with he's getting 100 yards week in and week out, it seems like, and putting up touchdowns. He didn't get any this week. I feel like had he scored a rushing touchdown, we could see something different. However, he did get a receiving touchdown, 2 receptions, 1 yard, a little dink and dunk, in the red zone to get that touchdown. Cody Latimer, though, 6 receptions, 35 yards. And I had to make a note of it. Alizé Mack.
Oh, why?
Alizé Mack, just because Tyrone Alizé McDummy. And you compare him, Alizé Mack, we were talking about him last week. 0 targets this week, Cole.
He didn't do a thing in this game, and you put him on the slate. Why?
Because if you think about it, had he had a target, had he caught the ball, would they have caught 6 more points and tied this game up? Would they have got the extra point conversion and won the game? Would they have a better chance to win if Tyrone Alizé McDummy plays in this game and has a target? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this game, my man?
Oh, gosh. The fact you highlighted Alizé Mack and just to throw in the Tyrone Alizé McDummy reference is hilarious. Hats off to you for that, sir. Last week when we broke this game down, I was thinking that the Defenders had to come in with the mentality of it's now or never. We got to get this one. And I think the Defenders had to feel they had to get this one more than the Brahmas needed it. And that, I think that is what you saw. And look, kudos to the defense basically in this game. They made it a little difficult for the both offenses to execute, but they got the job done. What? How can I put this? For me as an offensive lineman, when I see stat lines such as 31 carries for 115 yards, yeah, I could be fantasy football-ish and say, well, that's less than 4 yards a carry. That means they had a bad offensive output in terms of running the ball. I look at it opposite. I really believe that at the times that defenses, I personally think defenses are going to actually stop you, and you're going to have probably 1 or 2 yards in a carry, maybe a few times in the game. But sometimes I think you use the run to set up everything else, set up the pass so you can set back up the run, because you want to weaken the defensive line and get the linebackers on their heels, or smack them up to the point where they have to make business decisions when you tackle them. And so you get more of those carries. You end up getting those runs that was 2 yards, 1 yard to 2 yards. They end up being 3, 4, 5, 6 in the fourth quarter. So I love that. I love that the defenders actually stuck with the run and they just pounded the rock. That is what they need to do. Now, yeah, the passing game could have been a little better, although tip the cap to Harmon for getting over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. But I love the fact that it was about physicality. And when you leave with physicality, you get good things as a result. That's what happened to the defenders. They took it to the Brahmas. I think the Brahmas didn't have a proper answer for it. Although, yeah, they tried to run on the ground too. They just could not get enough points because this game was winnable for them. But the defenders at home gave you the W.
And, you look at the last play of the game right there. They fumbled. The Brahmas did. 19 seconds left. They didn't really have much of a chance. They're down by 6. They had, 11 seconds on the clock. I mean, well, they used 11 seconds on the clock, but
right.
Starting with 19 seconds left, they start with some laterals and they ended up fumbling to give the game back to the defenders. So you look at how it ended. This wasn't pretty. They are definitely missing, their first string quarterback, who they had prior to this. And Quentin Dormady is doing the best he can, but, he's just not cutting it. And I think that it's going to definitely change the complexion of what we see from this team for the rest of this season. So, now looking at all that, we've got our game of the week that we have to look at here. And this is definitely going to be something pretty wild. The past 2, I think maybe 3 weeks now, I've had the winless team in the game of the week category. And normally I wouldn't pick this, but when you look at how scrappy this team has been and how close the games have been, they could easily be 3-3 right now. They could easily not be 0-6. Looking at this team right here, losing by 1 point, 28-27 to the Michigan Panthers, who were 4-2 now as a result. Looking at this game as our game of the week, Danny Etling, 202 passing yards and a touchdown, along with 7 carries and 55 yards. His coach, his offensive coordinator, told him in this past week's game he needed to run. He needed to be a little bit more mobile because he was looking like a Statue of Liberty back, standing up tall. And even though they were 3-2 coming into this game, if he didn't move and get a little bit more mobile, it's not going to do anything. They're not going to get any progression. And look at what happened. 7 carries, 55 yards. And this team wins by a point. And in the last drive, he had like a 20-yard run, little QB bootleg he had off to the side. It was pretty wild a play to watch in the moment. I remember seeing that. But other than that, their running game was lackluster because Wes Hills, 9 carries for 15 yards, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns on those carries right there. Looking at that, that's how they got the ball in the end zone between the 3 of them, but between him and Danny Etling. Matthew Colburn second, 8 carries, 24 yards, along with Marcus Sims, 4 receptions, 67 yards. Siaso Mariner, 4 receptions, and that touchdown that gave Danny Etling that 1 receiving touchdown. We got the Nakua brothers, Puka Nakua, playing in the NFL for the Rams. We've been talking about Kai Nakua throughout this season with what he's been doing. He had 3 consecutive games throughout last week with an interception. Didn't get one this week. He had 6 tackles, 4 of them solo, but still made an impact on the defense. His brother, though, and also Puka's brother, Samson Nakua, makes his debut this season. 2 receptions, 27 yards, wide receiver on the other side of the ball. You got one playing defense, the other playing offense, and Puka playing in the NFL. The Nakuas are all over the place. It is a beautiful thing to watch, and you see their team continue to win. now that they're 4-2. Jake Bates, another big thing to talk about for this team we've been talking about all season. Field goals, man, 5 for 5 on the day. First one, 43 yards. Second one, the longest of the day, 60 yards. He's got like 4 or 5 60-plus yard field goals this year already through 6 weeks. 29 yards for his third one, 49 for his fourth one, and a 42-yard one at the end to get them just over the hump with 2 seconds left to win 28-27. Then you look at the other side, Luis Perez putting up a fight. This is why I said in the thumbnail, they were hungry because he's still almost leading the league in passing yards. He's like in the top 2, top 3 in passing and conversions and completions and touchdowns to interceptions ratio. He hasn't been the problem. It's the running game that we've seen issues with until this week, which is why they stayed in the game. 111 rushing yards on 22 attempts, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, two by Day Hunter for 1 and JP Payton, the receiver, but he gets a rushing touchdown on the day. 2 receptions, 38 yards for him, along with Sal Canella's 6 receptions for 52 yards. These Renegades, man, they stayed in the game. They stayed in it, losing only by 1 point at the end. It was Jake Bates, who's been a hero for 3 out of the 6 games at least, and keeping them close throughout the entirety of the others. They are 4-2 for a reason, this Michigan Panthers team, but the Renegades, man, you have to feel bad for them. Like your heart feels so bad for them. Looking at where they're at now, 6 consecutive losses. They were just in the XFL championship last year, not going this year. But what are your thoughts? How are you feeling when looking at this team 6 weeks in and looking at a game like this, as we've seen more than just this one game that they've been close in all season?
Okay, let me put on my Houston hat for a second. Whoa, I love it. Yes, take all of the baby. Yes, I want you to take as many of as you can. Woo.
Oh, looks like I got a little bit of. Looks like Comcast giving some problems to my man real quick. Let's see what's going on with that. You gotta tell this. You gotta tell us to the interwebs sometimes.
Now, that is absurd.
My dude had just put his Houston hat on, was getting ready to go into a great take. He was loving it, and then all of a sudden, just popping on out of here. That's when I got to do this.
Oh, my brother, testify.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is probably going to do a little bit of a reboot action, but while he's doing that, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go through some comments real quick, see what you guys got going on. Here in the comments since the last time we talked, Latina in Cali is in the house. It's awesome that you were able to tune in. Thank you for tuning in there, Latina in Cali. And then we've got another question or another statement here by Sick Dicky saying, I would agree at Cole Sports. It's going to take more than just good practices. There needs to be plenty of homework, for example, studying video footage. I mean, that's what they have to do. They got to do better at preparation and being able to break down coverages and stuff like that on both sides. And plays, being able to cover it on defense, but also to combat it on offense with the other team.
Yeah,
they got to do their homework. But right when we had the battle with the interwebs, you would just put your Houston hat on, Cole Johnson.
Yes.
You got to continue. We could always, if we make it into a clip, I could dub the rest of that out. Let's bring it back in. Houston hat on. How are you feeling?
Oh, bad. It is so great to see a Dallas team suffer. I love the fact that we have a Dallas team that's just taking one after another, after another, after another.
Cheers to that.
Nothing does a Houstonian's heart good or better than seeing any Dallas area team suffer L's. All right, that hat off. put that analyst hat on. What I'm loving about this team is that they just simply are scrapping, they're clawing, and they aren't quitting. And I love that. Yes, they're 0-6, but they're not the type of team where it's like, oh gosh, they suck. I don't want to see them. They're horrible to watch. They give you effort. They give you effort, and that's really all you can ask. Even with their record being 0-6, that's all you can ask. They give you effort. It's just that unfortunately, the teams that they're playing against seem to make one or two more plays than the Renegades do, and this game is proof positive of it. I mean, the Panthers got a chance to kick a game-winning field goal. They just make one more play. And all the Renegades need to do is make that one more play than their opponent. And it is heartbreaking, but you can't really badmouth them. You know, the defense, although, yeah, it could be better, they're giving effort. The offense actually was pretty good. But like you were saying earlier, the running game was not all that great until this game. And this game, it actually was pretty good. And personally, I think they could have probably run the ball just a little bit more. I would, seeing that 5 yards of carry, I would have probably pounded the ball even more. Me. But yeah, I feel for the Renegades. They keep fighting, they keep scrapping, they keep clawing, and keep scratching, and they just simply keep falling short. And it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. I mean, when you go look down their numbers, like line by line and team numbers, very similar throughout this game. I mean, it was very competitive through and through. That's why, on paper, at first, when you see teams that are 0-6, you wouldn't think you'd be picking them to be a part of a game of a week, and especially in consecutive weeks. Like,
right.
You and I've had the conversation off air. It's just like this is tough when you only have 4 games. It's tough to pick game of the weeks when you have this kind of lopsided victories here and there with 2 of the 3 of them, and then you got one like this is close, and it just happens to be a team that is got no wins throughout consecutive weeks as well. But looking at this right here, like you said, and like we both covered, this running back team side of it, if they can continue to produce numbers like this, they could potentially win out, and they're not going to make the playoffs at 4-6 if they get to that point. If they win 4 on out, but they could hurt other teams' opportunities to advance and play in the playoffs and go for a championship for the first season in the UFL. Regardless of who makes it, they're going to get stomped by the Stallions, it just seems like. But, right here, right now, it's just it's tough to watch this when you have a team that usually when they're 0-4 like this in a 10-game season, you can kind of see body language. They're like giving up. This team has not given up at all throughout the 6-week course. And that's why you can see these close games, and they're hanging in there. They are hungry for the win, as hinted in the title. I'd love to see them, just because I want to, just like the Showboats, they got their win. Okay, they can lose the rest of the year because they got their one win. You got the Roughnecks. They got their one win too. So let the Renegades get a win. Not let them, but let's just hope we see them get a win. Because I don't want to see a Detroit Lions situation where, they're 0-6, 0-16, but we don't have that many games in a season. But it feels that way because 10 games in some cases does feel like a 16-game season because it is kind of long. So, but looks like Sick is saying we got Latina and Callie in the house saying howdy.
What's up, girl?
Haven't seen her in a while. I'm glad she's here.
It's good to see you again, girl.
Thank you so much, Latina and Callie. Glad you could tune in. Sick Diggy, they got the chat going back and forth and telling each other they're doing well. But apparently that's his thoughts exactly as what he said 6 minutes ago. We're talking about this team right here. And welcome back. Looking at that right there.
Thank you.
Welcome back, because we had, the interweb sometimes give us troubles, man. We got to, it's like we're battling ninjas out here with the streams. You got to be careful. You got to do what you got to do to get this thing right. Ike doesn't give up. Is in the house and says, "Yo,
what's up, Ike? It's good to see you again, man."
I have to be careful. I can't really say your entire name because at some point I would like to elevate this show to get it like on the radio airwave or like in other platforms to showcase us in this show. I'm
Right.
gonna do what Cole does and say Ike doesn't. I'm just gonna Ike doesn't get.
That's
What
right.
do you-
Ike doesn't.
Ike doesn't. That's what we're gonna do. Rock and rolling. Snowman's in the house.
What's up, Snowman?
Snowman is in the house. Haven't seen Snowman in a while. Glad you were here, brother. Glad you're doing well. Rocking and rolling.
I
Out
figured
here.
Latina would love her name. Would love his name.
Ike has been a veteran of our
Yeah.
shenanigans out
He
here. We've
has.
seen him for a
He
while.
has.
So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah,
Thank you,
brother.
Snowman. Thank you, Latina and Cali.
Thank you, guys.
Sick Diggy. We've gone through our first segment being the open and drive. Now we got to take this into our first commercial break. When we come on back, we got the gridiron scoop to talk about and much more on this edition of Total Football Talk.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on two. Ready? Quick.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy, and now begins a future one of matrimony or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network proudly presents The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday morning beginning April 29th at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. You kids on the block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. We are back for episode 36, taking a look at UFL's Week 6 recap that we just covered, and now we've got more news to look at when it looks at NFL, UFL, CFL's right around the corner. Total Football Talk, rocking and rolling as we are back for that. And we look at what we've got here for this gridiron scoop, Cole. We got plenty to talk about here on the other side. Ex-Browns, Texans, Dolphins, and Bills running back Duke Johnson retires from the NFL. With that being said, you being a fan of the Texans there, Cole, what are your best memories of him from his 8 seasons in the league, spending a good amount of time with the Cleveland Browns, but he did have a cup of tea with you in Houston. What are your thoughts on Duke Johnson retired?
Well, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I mean, he was looked upon as like a hybrid type of running back. He wasn't fully embraced as a 3-down back. He was not fully embraced as the 3rd down scat back like David Mackett type, but it was sort of like a hybrid of the two. And he may have, I think I say this, he may have come into the league just a wee bit too early, because now that is what teams want. Teams seem to want to have a guy who, yeah, he may be able to be a 3-down back, but he doesn't have to be, but he actually could have good hands on the backfield too. So to me, that is his enduring legacy, and that he came from the U, and and of course at the U, obviously, if you make it there, you have athleticism just pouring out your ears. So it wasn't that he didn't have the talent. I just believe that he came into the league probably maybe 5 years too early.
Yeah, I mean, even had he played a little bit longer, or not played a little bit longer, but started a little bit later, been born 5 years later, he could have definitely meshed well with today's NFL. But unfortunately, injuries and stuff caught up with them. And running back, 8 years in the league is a good amount of time. When you think about the abuse they take with the amount of hits they take throughout. And it's not as bad as what it once was, like 10 and 15 years plus ago. But it's still, taxing on your body to be at that position and do, put up a good fight for 8 years. And the Browns, when he was playing with that team, they weren't really anything to look at. Kind of like, as of late, they've had flashes in the pan, still have a lot to work on. But, with his time there, they weren't really, he was one of the highlights at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the best of a bad bunch. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's not saying much, but yeah.
We think about Joe Thomas, and he was there around that time, getting blocks for him.
With him, right?
That probably helped him out with that too. So how he was, moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Looks like we got Mickey Delaney in the house saying, "Sorry, I am late. Had a doctor's appointment." Well, Mick, glad you're here.
Yes, sir.
We're just rocking and rolling. I gotta at least say, the pollen has been terrible in Virginia at this point. It has been knocking me down. It is absolutely terrible out here in these streets. So hopefully you guys are doing well with your parts of the U.S. and outside as well. Hopefully the pollen isn't bad for you. But it looks like Latina says, fortunately, I have my own chickens, talking about a big scam to cause American businesses chaos.
Talking about the bird flu. Yeah.
Yeah. The bird flu crap is crap. There it is. It's good saying right there, Latina. But yeah, when it comes to Duke Johnson, though, you got to look at what he did in the NFL. And hopefully he has a great secondary career outside of it. So looking now on to quarterbacks. We've talked about the Miami Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa. And, he's got a brother, played a little bit of college ball. We've seen him out there playing on that field. And,
that's right.
Looking what he did with the Maryland Terps and now coming out into the draft, getting undrafted. But he goes to the Seattle Seahawks. He's given an opportunity there in minicamp that we'll see here shortly. And will the undrafted rookie quarterback, the younger brother of Tua, will he be more impressive in camp than Sam Howell?
Will Talia Tagovailoa be more impressive in Seattle Seahawks camp than Sam Howell? That's the question you're asking, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'm having a hard time trying to get the right answer. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. I think this is the right one.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, to the no.
Yes, take that, Kyle Nash.
Listen, Sam Howell isn't bad. He just simply needs to have an offensive line in front of him and an offensive coordinator that's worth his time to actually teach him how to properly play quarterback. That's the only two things that's missing from him. Now, if he gets those things, I think he will be good for any team. But as I told Drew when the Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels, I said, bye-bye, Sam Howell. He would no longer be a Commander. So now he's a Seahawk. I don't know. I just look. Talia Tagovailoa, he may prove himself later, but if he went undrafted, that pretty much means that he's probably going to be relegated to the scout team at best, Oh, I should say at worst. At worst, he'll probably be relegated to the scout team. At best, he might be holding the clipboard being a third stringer if the Seahawks decide to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster to go throughout the season. But no. If I mean, and you still have to deal with Geno Smith. So, can Sam Howell beat out Geno Smith?
That's a good question. And I hope he does, just so people like Kyle Nash have to eat it who say he is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I have not given up on Sam Howell. I hope the best for him. He just can't do it in Washington.
All because he went to an ACC school.
That's how Kyle Nash feels about it, because he went to an ACC school. He has an absolute hatred. He thinks anybody who comes out of ACC schools are absolutely putrid, and especially when you think about this school right here in particular, he actually hates it. So we'll talk more about tonight, because tonight, In or Out Sports Debate returns at 9:05 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will be able to see me bring up a bonus question. And I'm going to have to. Talking about Sam Howell now that you and I talked about today on Total Football Talk, and see how he feels. See if he goes in or out on this one when it comes to that one right there. But no, I'm with you, though. Sam Howell proved that he can play in Washington if you give him an opportunity. You just need to put better weapons around him and have a better unit around him, which in Seattle, in my opinion, at the time that Sam Howell was traded to the Seahawks were a better team, in my opinion, than the Commanders. Now, throughout the draft and free agency and moves that I've talked about on the Commanders Gridiron Report, and they landed, which we'll talk about it here in a little bit, so many of the top 50 prospects in the league throughout the draft. So looking at this right here, you have to say, Sam Howell went to a better situation, but then the Commanders created a better situation. It's hopefully going to work out the best for everybody, and we see them in the playoffs, except for every time the Commanders or Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins, saw the Seahawks in the playoffs throughout the new millennium, it was like their kryptonite, because they couldn't beat the Seahawks in the first round of the playoffs every single time they faced them. So if Sam Howell is the quarterback and gets the revenge game, I don't like the chances of the Commanders in that game. And we don't even know who all is going to be playing. I'm just going to go ahead and call it now. Revenge game, Sam Howell, it's coming.
Oh.
But it might not be with the Seahawks.
Well, ask this question of one Mr. Nash. So if all ACC quarterbacks suck, then, well, he might say he probably does now, but what is his opinion about Russell Wilson?
especially now that he's in Pittsburgh. If he would have had to go to San Francisco, then Kyle Nash would be playing some sort of instrument, violin, because that's when he would lose it. He would go from Brock Purdy to that guy right there, Russell Wilson, and say, it's over. You better start playing the violin at that point, Kyle Nash. But no,
that would be hilarious.
Yes. You got your guy, though, for the next decade at least, and that being Brock Purdy. So it's definitely going to work out with that one. But right here in Seattle, though, I think that Sam Howell is definitely going to be locking in QB2 on paper right now and throughout preseason. And if he can somehow, some way outperform Geno Smith, who, 1, is older, 2, has only been decent consistently throughout the past couple seasons. Sam Howell's young. Give him the right opportunity with a new coaching staff and a new, culture pretty much over there in Seattle. I like his chances, man. Maybe not being the starting quarterback right away, but proving himself. And maybe if he has to go to another team for that third chance, but I think that he's got a good situation over here in Seattle.
I agree.
But to his brother, though, no, we definitely both agree he's not going to come in there and mop the floor with Sam Howell and take it away from him. Looking on to the next one, we got a Hall of Fame wide receiver Michael Irvin out at NFL Network as NFL Total Access canceled after 21 years. Should he be given another opportunity to cover the NFL on another major platform?
Yeah, sure. I don't think Michael Irvin is done being an analyst, and quite bluntly, seemingly the animated, cartoonish style type of analyst seems to be in vogue these days. So, look, Michael Irvin, you could say he's a lot of things. Dull is not one of them, and I personally think that, you know, I think he just ran his course in the NFL Network, and that's fine. Now my question is though, you know, he and Stephen A. Smith, the boys, can he get Michael Irvin back on to the 4-letter network? That to me would be the question that I would ask. And I know he appears on Fox Sports 1. Well, not necessarily Fox Sports 1 per se, but basically skips Undisputed. And I think he'll get another shot. Now, should he be given? That's for the others to debate. But he's going to get a shot.
I think so too. You know, he's worked with ESPN in the past. You know, you said the 4-letter network. He's worked with them in the past. You know, could he potentially find a spot over on Fox? You know, the Amazon Prime. You know, you got that with the Thursday Night Football, and you know, with things they got going on for Amazon Prime. You know, the things they're doing with Paramount Plus and CBS. You know, there. I think there's going to be somewhere for him to go. The type of role that he plays is going to be the question. And, you know, because he's been around in broadcasting for one, as long as NFL Total Access was around for one, you know, because his playing career ended in late 90s. So looking at this, you know, for the better part of 25 years, we've seen Michael Irvin on our TV, you know, covering football one way or another, breaking it down, you know, and being on NFL Total Access for quite some time. That has now come to an end. But yeah, I think that he deserves an opportunity to definitely showcase his talents when it comes to what he knows with the game. And he also says, when it comes to Sick Diggy, he says, can it also be said that Sam Howell needs some growing up and maturing to do as well at Cole Sports?
Yeah. I mean, any quarterback that has the opportunity to have a franchise to lead, they have to do some maturing. They have to have some maturation process. I don't care who you are. I don't care what type of style of quarterback you are. So yeah, definitely. Now, am I saying that Howell is immature? No, I'm not saying that. But I just think I think he didn't receive the proper, and this sucks because of course he played on my boys' team, but I don't think he will. I don't think he will say that I'm speaking out of turn when I say it. I don't think he had the proper guidance when he was in Washington. And am I saying that he probably could get some in Seattle? Maybe. Now, the last couple of years, their offense has been pretty good under Geno Smith. And I personally think that Sam Howell actually has some talent that probably could eclipse Geno. So I think he might be in a better situation. I would like to see a better offensive line in front of him, though, in Seattle. But yeah, I think he does have some maturing to do, but I think he's up to the task, and I think he can, and I think he will mature.
Yeah, coming into this offseason, both the Seahawks and the Commanders especially, they definitely had to make some noise when it comes to the offensive line. They had some things to address there. Seahawks a little bit, but like I said before, I think that Sam Howell going into that opportunity as QB2 on paper starting out is in a better opportunity there than if he were to stick around with the Commanders and back up to Jaden Daniels or be the bridge quarterback to kind of help. Yeah, it would have been too much, especially when you think about how young Sam Howell is. They got some value for him in the trade. And you look at, but it helps both sides because Geno Smith is kind of like Ryan Tannehill at this point, how he was with the Titans. You know, Tannehill had a couple of decent seasons, kind of like there towards the midway point of his career and that age. And we don't know how long Geno Smith is going to be decent, or just completely fall off a cliff. If that's possible for Geno, who knows? Because I mean, he's had his flashes of the pans of looking pretty great at some moments and then looking pretty subpar. And that's probably the nicest way I can really put it, especially with this time, you know, before, you know, earlier on in his career with the Jets. So now he's learned, he's matured. So with what
See?
Sick
There
Dicky
you go.
says here,
Mhm.
that could be a situation where maybe Geno helps Sam to get to that
Mhm.
point, mature enough to where, hey, Geno maybe only has a year or two left
Mhm.
with the team. Sam is going to be in his mid-20s still. When that happens, he could be young enough and still develop well enough to where we can still see Sam Howell be something at some point. I
Correct.
just wish it would have happened with my team, but
Yeah.
the situation he was drafted into and came into, heads were rolling, where they were already in the process of rolling. The owner's head was already rolling. Then, he's gone and new ownership comes in. It was destined that they were going to, clean house and bring in new faces. And unfortunately, Sam Howell happened to be part of it because, as much as he tried and EB tried the first month to month and a half, 2 months of the last season, it just didn't work out for him. And Ron Rivera, it was time for them all to go. And the right moves were made. At first, I was disappointed because I wanted EB to have a good chance in an opportunity at it,
Right. I did
but
too.
it just didn't quite work out for him. But definitely a great question there, Sick.
Mhm.
Definitely appreciate you popping that one in when it
Wonderful
comes
question.
to that one right there. This next one, Cole. St. Louis, San Antonio, and Birmingham lead the UFL in attendance through 6 games of the season. Well, these
Okay.
numbers convince the NFL to potentially add 2 teams from either of these cities someday. We were talking about where they potentially add a couple of teams, and then talking about scheduling breakdowns about a week or so ago with all that. But when you think about this, the way the attendance is going, they are still talking about it. It's a hot topic. Like there's article after article about it each week. And now when you look at these numbers, St. Louis is like leading the way, but we already talked about before that they had their opportunities at an NFL team. It's
Water woods.
it's not likely for them to get another one. But can you see San Antonio or Birmingham, especially Birmingham? Could you see one of these 2 places if they do an expansion at some point to maybe 2 to 4 additional teams to the league? Could you see these 2 cities being a part of that expansion?
I love San Antonio. And been in Birmingham. I love that city too. Both in different ways are football hotbeds. And of course, St. Louis, there's nothing to say about that because I mean, they pack they pack the dome every single time they play. The Battlehawks play there. They are starving for a football team. What sucks about what I'm about to say is I don't think those numbers will be convincing enough for the NFL to take out a flyer and say, yeah, let's put a team in St. Louis or San Antonio or Birmingham. And it's unfortunate, especially with St. Louis, because they've been burned not once, but twice, with the Cardinals leaving and the Rams leaving. And the second time was even more pathetic than the first. I just don't see it because one, the NFL is going strong, and two, if they do add 2 teams, it seems add teams, seemingly the shield is looking overseas, and I think they would be more apt to add a team overseas before they'll add another U.S. team. Which to me, I don't think that makes as much sense as to do this because you actually have proof that on the same soil that your league plays, you might have a city that you may need to serve that needs to have professional football be in. I do agree with that. But seemingly I think they have eyes. It's like Europe is the lover that the NFL is chasing. And I think they want to put a team in London or Munich or even Paris before they want to put a team in St. Louis, San Antonio, or Birmingham.
It's so unfortunate because, the NFL, American made, they merged with other leagues in the past throughout their 100+ years of existence. And, we got teams that are like starving for football. Cities that are starving for football, starving to have teams and represent them. And they're having great home crowds. Drawing the best money probably helping keep this league stay afloat at some point, because you got to think about the media and the revenue share of all the stuff coming. You got to think about all that because it's all owned by one conglomerate. It's not like individually owned like they tried to do before and like how they're
Right.
doing in the NFL. Like the
Mhm.
league owns the team. So all the revenue coming in, it's like revenue share. You know, it's helping it stay afloat by having these 3 teams out of 8, you know, have great attendance where you've got other teams that are having very subpar to hardly any. The beer
Mhm.
snake has been still alive in DC, but even the attendance there is very, very subpar in comparison to last year when they were crushing every single week, when they finished the season 9-1, when they were, you know, hitting it hard throughout the year, the people were coming. But they've had a lackluster start, plus the start of the UFL season, the timing and everything. We've already gone through that at other points throughout our Total Football Talk episodes and how they could have prepared the league a little bit better. However,
Right.
looking at all that, we're still where we're at. And, you know, hopefully it can continue and we can continue to get eyes out there and people to talk about it. Because the more people talk about it, the chances of it happening improve. Because, you know, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. But if they see numbers, they see ticket sales, they see revenue, they see concessions, parking, whatever, the revenue coming in from that area, and they want to consider having the UFL as a minor league situation, who knows? Maybe part of the minor league situation with that, if that ever were to come about, where they would inherit 2 of those teams to bring it to the NFL. If they can make it work with scheduling and all that too. Who knows? And then put 2 teams in London too. You add 4 teams because I think the way we talked about it before, they would have to add 4 teams in order to really make it work out with the scheduling and to increase it to 18 games in a season. Have 2 buys, 20 weeks. That's your situation right there. Your 4 teams, 2 in London, Birmingham, San Antonio. That would be my pitch. However, we got to make this happen, guys. We're taking a clip out of this show and we're going to share it, and hopefully we can make this go viral and help the NFL get 2 to 4 more teams by 2030. There it is. You can do it. You got 6 years to make up your mind. Make my prediction come true. You can do it. Our next one here on the Gridiron Scoop, the Dolphins signed wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. to a 1-year deal worth up to $8.25 million. Will this move affect what they've built over the last 2 years positively in that Dolphins organization?
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
Okay.
Now I like Odell Beckham Jr. That's not a knock at him, but we saw what difference he made last year in Baltimore, or should I say, a lack of difference he made there. I mean, they went to the Ravens, got the #1 AFC seed basically in spite of him, and the weapon wide receiver wise that Lamar Jackson went to on a daily on a game to game basis was Zay Flowers, not Odell Beckham Jr. So you can't really say that he is fast. You know, you can't really say that he runs the best routes, but he runs okay routes. Basically, when you think about Odell Beckham Jr., you think of hands. Okay, so he has hands, and obviously the tape, the video that's gone viral is when he was a Giant his rookie season. He had a one-handed catch for a touchdown against the Cowboys in a Sunday night game. So if he can actually become at home with being a possession receiver, like I think he was being when he was with the Rams, then maybe the positive impact could be made. But if he thinks that he could be like a Tyreek Hill or even a Jalen Waddle, no. And I unfortunately still think he believes he can be that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2019.
Right.
So looking at all that, 2020 through now, he had 319 receiving yards in 2020, 232 with the Cleveland Browns throughout 6 games of the season, then was traded to the Rams in that year in 2021. Had 305 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns with the Rams to help them get to the point to where they did to the Super Bowl, but then getting hurt at that point. But hey, he still earned a ring, but hasn't been the same since that injury. Missed all of 2022, and then last year played in only 14 games with the Ravens during the season, putting up only 3 touchdowns on 565 receiving yards. Looking at his numbers there, in 2 games in the playoffs, only started one of those 2 games, had 4 receptions for 34 receiving yards in that game. So, again, like you said, not really that much of an impact for the Ravens. It's only going to do but so much for the Dolphins. Will he hurt their chemistry? No, I don't think he'll hurt their chemistry or be like a problem in the locker room, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have seen the Ravens do what they did last year. He wasn't what cost them at that. We had other factors that cost them, what they did to get even further and get to the Super Bowl, but we'll leave that part alone because this is about him. Ever since that injury, when they were making that Super Bowl run with the Rams, he hasn't been the same. And even up to that point, he was battling some things. And since that 1,000-yard season in 2019, it's been 4 good seasons since we've really seen the old Odell Beckham, and that was while he was in Cleveland. It just happened to be his first year in Cleveland. He went off, after getting there, and then he got hurt, banged up, and then we already know what happened after that, with the Rams. So looking at this right there, it's definitely, I think this is make or break for him. Like, he has to have a decent season this year, or he's going to be retiring, or definitely be seeing the sidelines, because there's no way people are going to continue to pay him up to this amount of money, even though it's incentive based, the $8.25 million. However, if he doesn't even make half of it and is hurt for a good portion of the season and doesn't make a positive impact for this team in some way, shape, or form, 1, he's not coming back, but 2, I think other teams are going to be a little more reluctant in signing him, when it comes to next year. Looking at, you'll have 5 years at that point, 5 years on paper of seeing declining numbers. It's make or break for Odell Beckham at this point. I'm going to throw a bonus one in there real quick before we go to our grand chant, because, I was listening to, the show this morning, what you had there, Cole, and I'm going to throw this up there, even though you guys saw the commercial earlier, but, you definitely have to check out Cole's show, The Morning Shift, every weekday morning now, 8 a.m. Eastern time on BS3 Networks. Morning Shift with Cole Johnson's YouTube channel and on Roku on the BS3 Network. You have to check it out. One of the things you talked about today was, old Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr.
Nice.
You like that? You like that? I did that because when you watch the roast, he said it. Because in that moment, because he said it and he didn't have the audacity to say the second, I retired the second. I'm just going to sneak in the junior there and surprise Cole on our next episode was what I wanted to do. But watching that roast, it was 3 hours. There's not many roasts that I could, they're like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Long, right?
Netflix is doing some really cool things. They got Monday Night Raw starting in January next year. That's going to be live. They're doing some really big things with the live stuff. Do you think looking down the road 10 years from now, we'll still be saying, or if anybody's really truly saying it, that this roast of Tom Brady is the greatest roast of all time?
We might be saying it might be one of the, who knows? But I guess I could put it like this. I don't know. I don't know if you're old enough to, and you probably have seen this. Like back in overnight days when this was like in the 90s and 2000s, they would sell the roasts that Dean Martin would put on for different celebrities, and I looked back at actually when Richard Pryor had a roast for his show ending, and he for 45 minutes ripped the dais all by himself. It was hilarious. If you could probably say it might go down as the greatest roast of all time, or one of the greatest roasts of all time, simply because seemingly the way society is going, it's like it's becoming harder and harder and harder to say the cruel but funny things that you normally can get away with saying in roasts, because you're gonna have and it's already happened in certain roasts. You're you're gonna have the politically correct police say, "Wait a minute, no, you can't say that." And heck, it happened actually to Danny Jacobson. She now is at CBS Sports. When she was at ESPN, she she clowned Mike Golick in a roast, and then took a shot at Notre Dame by
Alma mater.
by saying, yeah, let me see if I can remember it. She said, quote, F touchdown Jesus. Close quote. Now, that's funny on his face, but she got suspended for a week from ESPN for saying it. It might happen because you might see roasts become tamer over the course of time. However, it shouldn't, because it should be understood that in roasts, anything can go. You can say whatever you feel, just as long as you don't get butthurt and defended by it, because it's just all jokes.
They were relentless with Giselle. They were relentless with her. And the karate instructor. And my best part, you got to look at what, Bill Belichick goes up there. And one of my favorite ones that he said was, you look about how he's got roasted on the Apple series for the Patriots dynasty or whatnot. Now he's up there. He's roasted Tom Brady or whatnot. I thought that was an awesome turnaround. You got Drew Bledsoe up there. You got Randy Moss, who's hoping to Belichick give him a ring. He's like, no, I'm not giving you your ring. You're SOL with that. I'm not giving you any one of your rings or whatnot.
That was hilarious.
You got 6, or you can give one of the ones from the Giants when he was a defensive coordinator, maybe. But hey, when you combine them, Belichick still has technically one more than Brady. Everybody's leaving that out. He still has 2 Super Bowls and a defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't he the assistant head coach while being the defensive coordinator, I think, during that run?
I can't remember if he was that way in 86. He definitely was in 90. He definitely was the assistant head coach in 90. I can't remember if he got assistant head coach designation in 86. But he definitely was the defense coordinator in 86 as well, though.
So that 91, I still consider that, if you're the assistant head coach, the amount of power he had working with Bill Parcells, as Bill Parcells is on his way out because he was having the congestional stuff, like the heart stuff, which is why he was stepped down initially to leave, and then go eventually a couple of years later go to the Patriots or whatnot, because I guess the stress or whatnot in New York.
Yeah.
But you look at that, the amount of responsibility Bill Belichick has, technically could argue that he's got 7.
I mean,
7 as a head coach.
I mean, Parcells let Belichick actually run the defense. I mean, Parcells may have given Belichick maybe some suggestions, but basically that defense was his. By the time we got to 90, that defense was his. The game plan we saw in Super Bowl 25, that was almost all Belichick. So there you go.
Yeah, and it was definitely, looking at the stuff on NFL films is great to watch, and you can definitely learn a lot from seeing what the schemes they were running back then.
Yeah.
Sick Dicky says Richard Pryor's roast is the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And you can't argue that. I mean, that's definitely up there.
I don't ever argue that. I don't ever argue that.
I kind of want to go watch that now that we talk about it. It's been a long time since I've seen that roast. But yeah, I'm just saying, they hyped up Tom Brady's roast to be the greatest of all time. You should be able to pick up on some sarcasm that I was throwing down with what I was saying.
I picked
but
it up.
I'm just sick. But yeah, Richard Pryor definitely is up there. But I think it was good. I mean, it was hyped. It was hyped up as the greatest. Not going to buy that completely, but I'll say that it was worth watching last night.
Right,
definitely was. You can't keep a Sheen down, but you can keep an Estevez down.
Oh Lord.
Patrice O'Neal, the roast of Charlie Sheen. That's awesome. Well, guys, you know what time it is. It's time we take it to, you know that. It is time we take it to the Grand Champ.
Total football talk.
Where are my dogs at? It's time for the Grand Champ and Cole. Coaches! It is time we bring up your grand champion, who it is for this week.
Why is he like this? I love you. That keep going, bro. Let me see. You know, I would love to do Adrian Martinez because he does deserve it, but I'm not going to award him that. I could do the same with AJ McCarron, but I'm not going to award him that either. You know, for me, you know, and like I said, I am an offensive lineman, and I think about this game like an offensive lineman does. So to me, when I see a team that commits to the run and they do it to a victory, and it could be ugly, I don't care. As long as you commit to the run and they have some success to it, I give them dap and credit. And that's what I'm going to do to the DC Defenders offensive line. I'm going to give them dap because they opened up holes for 115 yards for 31 carries. Now, I know you'd say, well, wait a minute. That's still under 4 yards per carry. I know. But sometimes in football, it is not about the amount of yards per carry as much as it is the number of attempts you get and how much you affect the team from the first quarter to the fourth. And if you stay with it, then you can get positive things that happen everywhere else. So I tip my cap to the Defenders. I think they needed to have a performance like this, ugly as it may be, for them to actually still have a chance to actually be in the playoffs come June. But I believe they needed to have this effort. And I love it being ugly, but it still was a W because the effort was put in. So for me, the Defenders offensive line, y'all my dogs of the week. Y'all know grand champs.
Well said. And it's nice to see the DC Defenders getting some love. Well said, Cole. I got to say, I love your pick. And I definitely did not see you going that way. And I think I want to go with something a little bit different. And with all that being said,
Let me talk to you.
Oh, yeah. Was that a total
surprise, motherfucker?
It's time for my dog of the week.
Oh, man.
And my dog of the week comes from Detroit, Michigan. And I was thinking about going with the Nacua brothers because we were talking about earlier about how that family has been getting hot. You got to look at what Puka Nacua is doing in Los Angeles. You got to look at what the other two brothers, you got one that's dominating on the defensive side, Kai Nacua, 3 interceptions consecutive weeks. It snapped this week, but hey, he's still, again, 6 total tackles for him solo. And you got the brother, Samson Nacua, his first 2 catches in professional football for 27 motherfathering yards. Oh, I'm hype. But no, we are not going to stick with them on the Michigan Panthers there, Cole Johnson. We're going to go with someone else, someone who's been making noise all season long. A dude who has been getting national, global headlines throughout the National Football League for his leg. For his leg that he can click it and tick it and send it. If you ever seen the movies where you can just send it, well, he can just send it. 60-plus yards every single time he tries. You know who that guy is, guys? Say it in the comments because Cole knows he's applauding in the background, making me hype. That's why I'm hyping. You know who it is? It is Jake Motherfather and Bates, the guy who had 5 consecutive field goals in this past game, in this past week. A team that needed this victory. A team who got my choice of the game of the week victory as they won in a close 28-27 game and had Jake Bates not kicked 5 total field goals, 5 of 5. And one of them being a 60-yard field goal, adding to all those other 60-plus yard field goals he had all season long. You've got teams like the Detroit Lions eyeing him. You got another team that we'll talk about here in a little bit, talking about Jake Bates a little bit more there. But when it comes to my dog of the week, my pick for this right here, looking at it, look at Jake Bates. Look at that leg. The fact that he kicked a 64-yard field goal. They called a timeout. They iced the dude. He had to kick it again. Dead center. Kicked it. This dude is a stone cold killer. He is not out there playing around. He wants to get paid. and he is going to take my choice for the grand champ and make it a great choice at some point in the NFL. When we have Total Football Talk later this year, at some point, we are going to be talking about Jake Bates in the NFL.
I agree with you there.
I don't know where, but he's going to the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you there. To me, I think he nailed his candidacy to be in the NFL when he hit a 64-yarder to win a game. So I'm like, okay, if you can kick a 64-yarder, get frozen, and then kick it again, and actually that kick was even better than the previous one. Yeah,
bro, I'm telling you, like he is. I don't really get hyped for kickers that often, but you know, Pat McAfee's getting hyped for him because he's all special teamers all the way.
He's punter, yeah.
But you know, he'd be holding Jake Bates' kicks if he was still playing in the NFL and in the Colts needed a kicker. He'd be holding them, you know. But looking at it right here, we'll talk about Jake Bates and a little bit more for his future. But when it comes to the grand champ, you had a great one there with the defenders in their line. And I appreciate that with Jake Bates. And I've been giving him a lot of love throughout this 6 weeks of the season, but it's warranted. Like it's not like it's a homer pick of any sort. Even if he was playing with the defenders, you couldn't say that it was a homer pick.
No.
So
no.
With that being said, guys, this is our picks for the grand champs. We're gonna go ahead and take this into our last commercial break. And when we come back, we have the return of the featured attractions.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. COMI Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D Willy in the evening,
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern,
exclusively on SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willy Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $, D Willy 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willy Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willy Bucks. And we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willy Bucks?
SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D Willy is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 11:05 a.m. Eastern, 10:05 a.m. Central on the SIRTOBA Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side.
Welcome back, Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. We are back from our last commercial break, and it's now time to take it to the featured attractions. With this week's featured attractions, you know, it's been going around the league that J.J. Watt has got potential eyes on returning, you know, maybe. If D'Amico Ryans absolutely needs it in 2024, should the Texans consider bringing back this legend? And would his addition help lead this team towards a Super Bowl victory?
I love J.J. Watt. I don't have any bad words to say about him, and if I would, it will all be fabrications out the wazoo. Uh, I will even go so far as to say that he is challenging to me, Andre Johnson, for the best Texan ever to actually wear the uniform. Definitely, no, without question, the best defender to ever wear a Texas uniform. There's not even a debate. I don't know if he can actually help the team out physically as well as he probably could, or definitely as well as he did, say, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. Now, if he were to be like a coach of sorts, like a defensive line head coach, defensive line coach, maybe. I think I could see that. As a player, I'm not so sure. But I will say this, though. If he were to be suiting up and playing, the work ethic, which I'm not questioning the Texas work ethic, it would increase because JJ Watt, he is a workout machine. I mean, the dude, I mean, he would grind in the winter in preparation for the fall. Yeah. I would love to see if he was healthy enough to suit up and play. Yeah, definitely. But I'm not sure if he could help them as a player as well as he probably could now as a coach.
Yeah, I think if he came in as like a role player and not necessarily had to start and play a certain amount of snaps, but came in, mainly as a leader, another captain to come in, like you said, put in the work, but help rub off on some other guys that may need a little bit more work. Not to say they didn't put in enough, because that team looked great last year in comparison to what everybody thought they were going to look like.
Right.
So, a young team, and you have a veteran that could come in and, not just tell them how to do that, like as a coach would, show them how to do it by being part of the team and doing it, because there's not many people on that team roster wise or within the coaching staff, only really higher ups in the organization that were there when, JJ Watt played. He was gone for a few years, playing with the Cardinals and stuff and doing what he did. I wouldn't say chase the money, but the Texans weren't even good at that point. So we kind of really needed to see his opportunities, and the money that he was making, they really needed to get towards a rebuild, and they're here. So I think in order for the Texans to bring him in, it has to make sense financially, because you also have to spread that money around other places. And, if he's willing to not get paid like top tier money, because he's been out of the league for over an entire season now, looking at that, he can only expect but to make so much. But even league minimum is still a decent amount of money too. So either way, it's not like he's going to break the bank, but I think that he's made his money. If he really wants to be an asset to the Texans team, they need to ease the burden by taking the league minimum, because you're already going to get some type of endorsements or something else, money from the Madden video game, from your likeness, whatever the case may be. You're going to get other money besides that league minimum. You're going to be just fine. You're JJ Mother, Father, and Watt. Okay. Take the league minimum. That's one. Two, you come in there and your role, as you don't have to be a guy that plays every single down, every single snap, but you are a leader, and you lead by example, and you go out there and you get dirty to do your job, but also uplift the guys around you, and the guys that are basically there in your spot, help them get better. I could see this, maybe not this year, but if JJ Watt was willing to come back for a 2-year deal or 2 1-year deals, if that was the case, and put in the work, I think that it would be beneficial for him. This team could and should, with what we saw last year, be in the mix for Super Bowl contention in the next year to two. And if he's a part of it, that would make it so much sweeter with what he's already given this franchise in the run that he had.
Oh, yeah, no question. That's the only thing I wish that he could receive, is a Super Bowl ring, because, again, there isn't a bad word I can say about JJ Watt. There isn't one. I love that dude, and if he would like to come aboard, I wouldn't really push back against it, really. But I love how you phrased it. Basically, be a part-timer, but your role is being a leader. Basically, you're the coach on the field, and you're showing the way for the youngsters, because the team is rather young. You're showing the way for the youngsters as to how to be professional, and everybody, I don't care who you are, including CJ Stroud, would need to have that to them by a guy who was respected in Houston, respected in the Texans organization, and most importantly, respected by D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, because I mean, they play different positions, but kind of similar in age. I mean, you got to look at like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Like the two of them play quarterback, but they are needed at their position. Like you necessarily aren't, but if it's a veteran piece like that, like both of us described right there, I think it would be beneficial, and D'Amico Ryan should entertain that. And especially if he's taking the league minimum and it's not breaking the bank, and he's willing to put in the work and be JJ Watt, or to the best of his ability, and definitely professionally in a positive way towards uplifting everybody else. I think that would be huge. So you look at the leadership you have on offense with CJ Stroud's young self, and he's wise beyond his years. You have somebody like JJ Watt back on the defensive side and help leading them with what they've already got there with those young guys. They would be nasty. And he wouldn't be expected to play every single down, so that the chances of him getting injured are less likely. That's true. And it's not like he hasn't been putting in the work since he retired. The man is in great shape. He seems like he might, like he said on a Pat McAfee show a while back, he might have to put on a few pounds for playing weight, a little bit.
Probably
he's trimmed down, but cardio-wise, playing wise, I mean, he hasn't done cardio, he said, but as far as weights, I know he can still hit hard and could probably still take some shots too. So he'll be just fine. He's JJ Motherfather and Watt.
Yeah.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
We gave him the business on that one. Take them, Texans, for Cole's sake, for all your fans' sake, and for the love of evolution within your team. Please take
love of evolution.
But, we were talking about this guy earlier, and an NFL team, besides the Lions. There's been a lot of hype over the past month and a half about the Detroit Lions looking at Jake Bates. But another team that has had their time, the Minnesota Vikings, have had their hands full dealing with dumpster Pelican kickers for quite some time. Should they attempt a change in fortune at kicker by seeking options from the UFL and start with Jake Bates?
For Paul Allen's sake, yes. And for those who don't know, I know a part of knows, Paul Allen is the play-by-play guy, and he's been the play-by-play guy for the Vikings for many years. Yes, I think they should take a flyer out on Jake Bates, because the best kicker they have had probably is, and this sucks to say, would probably be Gary Anderson. And in probably one of the biggest games they ever played, he missed a gimme field goal, the only one in 2 years that he missed, and that led to the L that he took in the NFC Championship game '98.
Yep.
But yes, I think the Vikings need to take a flyer out on any good kicker, but definitely if Jake Bates comes upon the market and the Vikings have a shot at him, they need to get him, because I think, and I think why you awarded him the grand champ or the dog of the week is just simply put, sometimes you don't know what type of weapon a kicker can be until you actually see one that can kick multiple field goals from deep. And I think if the Vikings were to have that, and I think they would need it. Not saying that points really come at a premium for the offense that they're going to put forth, but they're grooming the quarterback position for JJ McCarthy. So you have that understanding. And I know they have Sam Darnold. He probably is going to be starting until McCarthy's ready to play. I get it, but they're grooming the position for him. And I know where I'm about to go. You need to help a young QB out as much as you can, which means you got to have a stout defense, you got to have a great running game, and you got to have special teams, especially a kicker that can get you points if you fail a lot of the time to push the ball in the end zone. So most certainly, they need to look at him.
Yeah, because I mean, another thing too, you look at he's playing in Michigan, playing at Ford Field, and they've been putting some butts in seats there too. Right. They're up there with the other teams we talked about earlier as far as attendance. He's played in bigger games so far of this first month and a half of the season.
Right.
It's not like he's playing at a hunt with 100 people in the stands and hardly any crowd noise. And the UFL, in my opinion, the way it's designed, it's not the kickers don't get as much love. You have to really forge your own path. And Jake Bates is doing it because their go-to, I mean, of course, in football, your go-to is not kicking field goals, but it just feels like it's less likely they're going to be kicking field goals on these drives with the way you can potentially later in the game go for the 4th and 12 when you're down and convert that way. So we're seeing less chipping away with 3 points, except for if you're Jake Bates. If you have the Terminator known as Jake Bates on your team out there slaying the ball all over the field and kicking it accurately. Like a couple weeks ago when he missed one, I was flipping out because he was 4 or 5. Now he's back to Jake Bates' self again, and he's doing what he does best, and that's get his name in headlines to get on an NFL team. And the Minnesota Vikings, with losing Kirk Cousins, you don't know what you're going to be getting at production at quarterback because you had an idea of what you were getting when you had Kirk Cousins. He just fit well in that system, worked great with your coaching staff. And, you know, if you can get 15 points out of Jake Bates, it's like scoring 2 touchdowns, and you have another a quarterback that the replacement at least putting up a touchdown or 2, and you got your kicker putting up 5 field goals. It's like 4 touchdowns in a game. That increases the Vikings' chances from playing like dumpster Pelicans without Kirk Cousins to being somewhat respectable.
Yeah. And imagine if the team that played without Kirk Cousins for the second half of last year had a Jake Bates in as the kicker, how different that season would have ended for them.
Man, I hate the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, Cole. I hate him because it gets me thinking to another side, and I'm like, man, that would have been awesome. But now we are here, and just imagine if the Battlehawks had Jake Bates, and how they would be 6-0 right now if they had Jake Bates, because that could have been the difference in that one loss they had, because you have the Memphis Showboats winning the first game of the season and losing the past consecutive 5. And from that same week, the Battlehawks lost their first game and have won the previous 5. It's been opposite fortunes for both of these teams, but it's been definitely wild to watch over the past 6 weeks.
Who's giving them the business?
Our next topic here on the featured attraction segment, and I figure I take it to a team that you guys know I talk about pretty well about on the Commanders Gridiron Report. Not going to have an episode this week, but since it's football and it was within the NFL news for this week, when it comes to the Washington Commanders landed the most top 50 prospects with these selections that they had in this year's draft. Could this be the draft class that starts to turn things around for the franchise and make Adam Peters look like a genius?
You know, I like what they did. I like their focus. And I know this hurts considering that Sam Howell was the QB and they actually went for a QB in the current Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. But I thought that was a great beginning to basically saying this is a new era. This is not the Daniel Snyder stank Commanders. Even and this isn't even the Ron Rivera Commanders either. And I thought that this was a statement. I personally look at the Jaden Daniels pick as a statement of saying we're turning the corner and we're going to do something different. And I didn't really feel that way about the team last year, but in the draft I didn't feel that way then. I feel that way now. So I think this probably could be the class just with Jaden Daniels alone, and they made some really good picks. The Commanders did. I think this could be the class that actually turns fortunes around for the Commanders, because I really believe that's what they need. They need to get these diamonds in the rough, because that's how the Commanders were when they were not the Commanders. When Joe Gibbs was coaching them, he would find these diamonds in the rough, and they found enough of them to where they were just uber talented all over the field. And I think that's the approach I think the Commanders are trying to do. They're trying to get back to that, where they're trying to find these different spots. They have their QB, they build around him. They know that they had to say goodbye to Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So the two big stalwart defensive pieces are gone. And now they're building that too. So I think they have the understanding that they have to build. And now they have the quarterback. I think now the front office is saying, okay, we got our guy. Now we got to build to protect the guy. So how do you do that? Get him good defense, get him good offensive line, and get him running back. And then, of course, you also had to get him the pieces that he can throw to as well, obviously. But to begin, definitely get him an offensive line, a defensive line for sure, at least for now, and a running back. Get him those pieces so he can feel as though he can contribute. And oh, by the way, yes, Daniels has wheels too. So there you go.
He's definitely going to be a mobile quarterback, and as long as he protects himself and they protect him with the pieces that they got there within free agency and the draft on the offensive line side, like you said, made some moves with the running back, wide receiver core. They bring in Luke McCaffrey, son of Ed McCaffrey, brother of Christian McCaffrey.
I love that draft pick.
Middle of the draft, they bring him in, pick number 100. I think that could definitely make some positive dividends for this team right there too. You got to look at also the fact that, outside of Jaden Daniels, they bring in Zarin Newton, Mike Sandstrill, and Ben Sinnott. And I was talking about last week how Sandstrill, in my opinion, is going to be the steal of the draft and where he fell. And, there's definitely going to be some positive things coming, like you said, from both sides of the ball. They address needs on both sides. I think that next year, with the draft next year combined with this year, you're really going to start to see the formation of the foundation of this team and the culture that they really want to build within this coaching staff. Now, the difference is going to be here. Will we see it paying positive dividends on the field? I think so, but that, some people may say that may be a homer take right now based on what we're seeing on paper and grading it today. I think it will, but 6 months from now, we could be talking about something completely different. Once we're in November, midway through the season, 6 weeks left, who knows, at that point, when you've gone through 12 weeks, week 11, week 12, here we are, we could be having a different conversation at that point. But looking at those players, and the fact that you addressed the wide receiver, you addressed, like you said, running back, you're addressing your defensive line, your offensive line, your linebackers. They had 9 picks in this draft, and they moved pieces around. They moved down. They got more picks. They got some picks for next year, mainly within this year. But yes, that's
brilliant.
Adam Peters working with John Lynch. And then before that, he was an intern with the Patriots. So he might have learned how to cheat a little bit. I don't know, but doesn't mean that he's doing it. Doesn't mean that he's doing it. Not saying that he's doing it now, but he may have learned what not to do from the hoodie. So seeing how all that goes, I gotta say, fan or not, if you're just analyzing the team, if your Texans were like having a season like last year for the Commanders, and you had this type of offseason between the draft, between free agency, you're definitely happier as a Commanders fan today and the first week of May than you were right now as a Cowboys fan and Tyrone Alizé McDummy.
I was actually going to put myself in those shoes. That's exactly how I felt last year as a Texas fan. I thought when they expertly traded up again high in the first round, because I thought, okay, CJ Stroud, that's a good pick. I do like him, although people are going to poo all over Ohio State QB because they've been doing it for decades. But I still like the pick because I think he actually is a good guy. And I think he's going to be a difference maker, unlike many of the OSU quarterbacks before him. Little did I know that they were going to trade up the very next pick and get the defensive rookie of the year to match the offensive rookie of the year in Will Anderson. And when I saw those two picks, I felt, like I said, I felt that feeling of, I think we're about to turn the corner. Now, this year may suck, but I think we might turn the corner. And then I got surprised, and the year didn't suck. They actually won the AFC South. So I think as a Commanders fan, that's how you should feel. That's how I felt when I saw them pick Jaden Daniels. I was like, okay, this is a new day. This is a new dawn. They're staking a claim that they're turning a new corner, and they're driving down a different street. Now I want to see what they do after that, and man, they impressed me. They utterly impressed me in the draft.
If I can be pleasantly surprised like you were last season and have anything close to the success
I would
the
love
Texans had last
man,
year,
I would love for you to win the NFC East in 2024. I would love for that to happen. I'll be beaming for you.
I would appreciate that, and especially if I could have the opportunity. I haven't broken down any schedules yet, but if I could have the opportunity to relive and potentially achieve somebody else's prediction of 1-7, that would be awesome if that could come into fruition. But it's not going to, and I'm going to be nice because I love my guy Wise El Jefe. But that was fun. They did go 1-5. I was only 2 games away. You know what time it is now, though? It's time for my favorite time of the show. It's time to get chilly with D Willy and Cole Johnson when we get to this snowflake of the week pick. Cole, who is your pick for the snowflake of the week, sir?
I may have to apologize to you for making this a retro pick.
Okay.
But I feel as though I need to do this. Rashee Rice, come on down. You deserve to have this tea spilt on you. You were the number 1 wide receiver on the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champs. They won a ring before they drafted you. They won a ring your first year there. And in February, you were part of the toast of the town, although, yes, you didn't have the greatest of games in the Super Bowl. You did contribute to the team getting there. So in February, you do this one big grandiose thing. You celebrate, everything is great. And then the next month, you decide to use I-35, I-30, I-20, whichever interstate in Dallas as a drag strip in March. Come on, dude. Really, man? Was it worth you having a lead foot wanting to show how hard the horsepower goes into the car that you had, acting as though the streets are live, straight up, fast and the furious for you? Really? You should know better than that, dude. And because of that, you ruined at least your immediate future. Definitely, you ruined your future for the Chiefs. I don't see you coming back to them anytime soon. And your time in NFL may be in jeopardy because you wanted to drag strip on the doggone road. And kudos to the Chiefs. In the rich get richer category, I have to applaud one of my favorite draft picks that in this past draft was the fact that they decided to take Texas's Xavier Worthy to replace you. And for those who don't know, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas. I can't forget. I can't remember exactly his 40 time, but it was basically under 4.3.
He's a dog.
So they got a faster, possibly better replacement for you, and they may have found their best fast guy since Tyreek Hill, and they may be doing the things that they were doing with Tyreek Hill with Xavier Worthy come 2024. They could do that with you because you didn't have that type of speed. You had hands, you can run some routes, obviously, but you ran yourself. No, I'm sorry. You drove yourself out of the league by being stupid. How dare you, man? How?
Yeah, I fully support that retro pick for Snowflake of the Week because you're just in the Super Bowl. You just won.
Yeah.
You're very young. You had your whole career ahead of you, your whole life ahead of you. And now you got to deal with problems that nobody wants to deal with as a result of carelessness. You're not a kid anymore. You're an adult. You're a grown man. You can't be doing stuff like that out here in these streets, whether you have money like that or you don't. And the sad part is you hadn't even gotten your money check yet, your money contract yet, and it doesn't look like you're going to at the rate that Cole Johnson's broke it down at. So, with that being said, I fully support his message right there.
Thank you.
Now, my Snowflake of the Week, I'm going to get animated. Cole got animated. I'm probably going to take it to a new level. And when I think about it, I think about this team right here. I think about the name that they have on their jerseys. The fact that you look at every single jersey in the UFL. What's on the back of every single jersey on the UFL? The Brahma Bull. The Brahma Bull is on the back of every single jersey. The Rock. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Cole. He is on the back of every single jersey. And the San Antonio team, they are the Brahmas, of course. Now, you're probably saying, Drew, where are you going with this? You've got the Brahma Bull on the back of every single jersey. Yes. And then you've got the San Antonio Brahmas who come into this game doing great things this season with old Wade Phillips. And you look at what happened in this past week and the fact that they lost the game. They were 4-1. They lost to the DC Defenders who come into that game 2-3. They're playing at DC Field. They are dealing with the beer snake. Doesn't matter. All they could do, Cole, was put up 12 mother-fathering points. Now, I get it. You don't have Chase Garbers, your starting quarterback, the one who started you off hot, but Quentin Dormady's been getting wins without Chase the past couple weeks. Got him to 4-1. Come into this game playing a DC Defenders team that has been struggling. They are not the same team that they were last year, and it's obvious when they only put up 18 points throughout the game. I would have loved to have this game as the game of the week. I wish it would have been more interesting on both sides, but it wasn't. I had to pick a team that didn't have a win all year as the game of the week for the past 2, maybe 3 weeks. I lost count thinking about it because a team like the San Antonio Brahmas cannot get it together on all aspects of the game. Now, of course, I could have gone hard on the St. Louis Battlehawks for only putting up -5 rushing yards, which is an absolute showing of dumpster Pelicans playing football out there in the field. I haven't done it yet. Cole, but you know what? It's time. It's time that it's done. Dumpster Pelicans are on the screen right now, and they were the #1 dumpster Pelican of the week. Bring it back up. You are coming back up right now. Taking the loop on. I'm going to put it on loop, so you have to look at it as I've said it. You look at the dumpster Pelicans right here. You have to see the fact that the St. Louis Battlehawks were #1 in rushing for dumpster Pelicanisms this past week at -5. But then you look at the San Antonio Brahmas. And the San Antonio Brahmas did not look great at all either. Yet their running attack was okay. They had 23 carries, 153 yards, but their receiving attack is my point. They were the opposite. 79 passing yards by your starting quarterback, Quentin Dormady. Your running back was all over the place. 23 carries, 153 yards, couldn't run the ball in the end zone. But your receiving game was so bad, he had to have 2 catches for 1 yard for a touchdown. If you are Wade Phillips, you got to be thinking, my team is not going to survive the rest of the year playing like this, whether the DC Defenders decide to play good or not. You are the Brahmas. You have your logo on every single jersey of the UFL. It's time to play like it. The Rock didn't put a UFL logo on the back of every jersey like he should have. No, he put the logo of a team that has their own team, the San Antonio Brahmas. You need to represent them better by putting up a better display of quarterback play than 79 passing yards by old Q-Man, Quentin Dormady. That is my pick for the snowflake of the week. Might not have been as good as Cole's, but at least you got fireworks, and you know you loved it. I loved it too. 2-minute drill is next.
Total football talk.
The loop was still on. My apologies, everybody. So I had to leave it on for the Dumpster Pelicans. But when we're here for the 2-minute drill, you got to look at these teams that are up for this week. And I brought it back, Cole. Brought it back this week. The little graphic for
I see.
Memphis Showboats. You got to look at what they did in this team this past week. And look at this right here. Now they're 1-5. Come into this 1-5 against the Arlington Renegades, who are 0-6. This is the Dumpster Pelican Bowl of the Week.
No. Oh,
The
no.
1-5 Showboats take on the Arlington Renegades in Arlington, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Who do you have as you watch this on the 4-letter word network?
Well, considering that I now live in the same state as the Showboats are, I'm rooting for them. However, I think the Renegades are going to finally get their one victory. I think this is going to be the game where their hard work is going to pay off, and their little engine that could, or little renegade that could, actually will be the little renegade that will. I think that this is going to be the game where they finally break through, and they will make that one more play than the Showboats. And I think they're the Showboats, I think, are a perfect team where the Renegades can perform that one more play than.
I've been saying similar things for the past few weeks, and they've been letting me down, but I agree with you. I have a feeling they're going to get it done this week. We're going to have two teams after this game that only have one win and 6 losses at the same time.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Our next game on this Saturday, the St. Louis Battlehawks, who are 5-1, traveled to Birmingham to take on the undefeated Birmingham Stallions, Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. Can the -5 rushing yards for the Battlehawks, can they bounce back and actually prove us right for our pick as the only team we think that can actually serve an L to this other team, the Birmingham Stallions? Do you think that this is going to happen, or will the Battlehawks get their second loss of the season?
And I think the Battlehawks have everything that matters. They have the squad that can take care of business. They got the QB that's going to lead them. They have the ability to be a team that can give the Stallions their first loss. But I think I really do believe that the Battlehawks will win. And oh heck no, man! They're in Birmingham. No, I can't see them. I can't see the Battlehawks winning this game.
But internally, my heart says that I want them to win, but I agree, and it is no total
Surprise, motherfucker.
that we're gonna see in for the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Who's giving them the business?
Moving on to Sunday, the 12 p.m. game on the 4-letter word network. The Michigan Panthers, who are 4-2 now, take on the DC Defenders. 4-2. DC Defenders. Panthers. What is going on in this game right here? What do you think is going to happen in this game?
Oh man,
This is a tough one to pick.
This one is going to be a tough one. What is going to matter more, the defenders in needing this game more, or the Panthers in finding a way to just simply scrap out those tough, hard-earned victories. I think I'm gonna go with the Defenders again. They pleasantly surprised me with the Brahmas. I think they will do the same thing against the Panthers. But I really believe they have to continue with the script. Although it's going to be tough sledding for them. But I pick the Defenders.
It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. But in order, if they lose, they won't be eliminated from the playoffs. But it's going to make it even tougher. At this point, they kind of do need to win this week to keep things afloat for themselves in order to stay positive and to get to 4-3. They would knock the Michigan Panthers to 4-3 as well. I want to pick the Defenders here. I want to side with you, but something about Jake Bates, the Nakua brothers, the way this defense has been playing.
Yeah. Oh,
and especially when you think about the fact that had the San Antonio Brahmas had Chase Garbers or played a little bit better on their receiving side, or at least their quarterback been able to positively move the ball around a little bit better, they should have beat the Defenders last week, in my opinion, which is why I went off in my Snowflake of the Week pick. So looking at this right here, it's tough to go against it. But I'm going to go with the hot hand with Michigan Panthers here and pick them over the Defenders in DC. And this is what I'm feeling.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
In our last game on the week, the San Antonio Brahmas, who again I just went off about, who are 4-2 now, travel to Houston, take on the Roughnecks, who are 1-5, 3:00 p.m. Eastern time on the 4-letter network. Cole, who are you picking?
Man, I think the Roughnecks are going to do it, baby. I think they're going to kick some butt. I feel it. I feel it in my bones. I really believe the Roughnecks are going to.
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
Yes, sir. The Brahmas.
I was thinking, we gotta pause that. You were like mid rant for it. I was like, yeah, we got to pause that. Get wild. It was not a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
to see you do that, to see you go off and then switch gears, because that just makes it even better and even more entertaining. And I agree with you on this one.
Yeah.
The Brahmas will improve to 5-2. The Roughnecks will deprove, I guess, if that is even a word, to 1-6. They will regress to 1-6. That is what we're going to see from this game in this upcoming weekend.
Total football talk.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it.
It's that time of the show. Time for the post game, because we have got to go. Cole, what's on your mind as we knock on the exit door?
Yeah, thank you for that Bob Dylan song. We now are in the stretch drive for the UFL, and my brother mentioned it. CFL is going to be soon to start, and we're actually now less than 3 months away from when training camp in the NFL begins. And of course, we still have to go through OTAs and mini camps, which that normally will take place in latter part of May and in June. I'm loving what I'm seeing with the talent here, and I think what The Rock or Dwayne Johnson wanted for this league to be, I think he's starting to see it now. Now in his second year of owning a league, along with his ex-wife Danny, I think he's now starting to see that the talent now can actually have a second chance, or a third, or a fourth chance of actually being in the NFL, or they can actually extend their careers like AJ McCarron. And I think I love that you have the ability to have a place where you can sharpen your skills, You can have teams in NFL take a second look at you. You can do all of these things and earn your way into the big league, because that really is what it's about. It's about being in the NFL. But the UFL is actually a good place where you can actually get the training really, and without needing all the OTAs, without really needing the mini camps, and the only reason why you would need training camp is to actually bond with the team, the NFL team, I mean, that you are going to be either, well, if they hold a draft for UFL players or in free agency. But I think when you can say that you can line things up, such as the Nakua brothers in Michigan, they probably will have a place in the NFL sometime soon. Or a Jake Bates on the same team that just simply can't miss a field goal. That's what it's about. You want to see these guys do well, and it's not a step down per se. It sort of is the elevation from college to pro, and the expectation for you to learn how to be a pro starts here. And I love that is what the expectation is. This is the beginning of being a pro, or it's an extension of being a pro, or it's a sharpening of being a pro. And now that we're in the stretch drive for the UFL season, I think we're going to see the best football of the UFL that we have seen possibly since the two iterations of the XFL and the iteration of the USFL last year. And I'm looking forward to it.
Well said, brother. Great post game chop up right there, and it's going to be interesting to see how the next few months pan out. Before you know it, like you said, 90 days away, and we're going to be in preseason action. NFL, the things that we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks and over the past few months can all come into fruition, and we see some great things. And I'm going to take what my brother said right there and just say that this has definitely been interesting fallout from the NFL draft. And you see what happened with Penix and him falling to, him getting taken with the 8th pick, not really falling as far as what a lot of us anticipated that he would have to. There was some questionable picks, that some had made, but then there's also some really good picks that were opened up from those other picks that were made. Every single year, it's like roulette. NFL draft. You have people on the board. You got the experts, the ones that think you're going to take this guy and this guy and this guy. And, top 5, they may get right. Top 10, they don't get them all right. But I would have to say that there were a lot of teams. There were a lot of teams that drafted really well this year on paper. We'll see how it pans out in training camp. And then once we get to some live action, once week 1 starts of the NFL regular season, and who makes the team and who doesn't, who's on the reserves and who's not. So based on what we've seen with all these moves, auditions that we're seeing with the UFL, CFL, another thing too, it doesn't get as much hype right now as like UFL does, but you're going to see people playing in the CFL that could potentially be playing in the NFL at some point, maybe not this season, but the following season, because CFL overlaps with NFL. But again, this is where you have the opportunity to see players that you wouldn't normally see during that 17-week regular season in the NFL. And that's what I like about the UFL, why I tune in each and every week, and why I'm a huge fan of football and have been since I was in Huggies. Now, talking about football talk, this show's got 36 episodes. It's definitely been a blast each and every week. Look forward to episode 37 next week. Last week, I had a graphic that popped up, and I announced an announcement for SIRTOBA Media. And if you didn't catch it then, well, then I guess it's this right now for you. In the words of the guy behind me on that side, do you want to see a secret?
SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
That's right. Tonight is the return of the In or Out Sports Debate, episode 106, the flagship show of SIRTOBA Media, returns after a 140-day hiatus. Kyle Nash is the first of many rotational panelists to come, and it will be back each and every week. Mondays, 9:05, same time. We'll announce tonight as breaking news who will be on for next week's episode. And hopefully this guy to my side right here, my brother Cole Johnson, can get back on there at some point in the near future. But right now, as always, we got to send it home. And the only person that can send us home the best is my man, Cole Johnson.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you so much for commenting. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for subscribing. And thank you so much for hitting that notification bell so you can catch all content that emanates from the SIRTOBA Media YouTube channel, as well as the COMI Media YouTube channel. And if you want to catch my brother Drew Willingham on the webs, you can catch him right here. SC at Instagram at SIRTOBA_media, also at SIRTOBA_media at X, at _SIRTOBA at TikTok, and at SIRTOBA Media at YouTube. And for me, you can catch me on any social media platform at flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That's flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you so much for a wonderful discourse in all things football. For Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say in parting, as we always do. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And as always, stay safe out here in these streets and these streams. So long, everybody.
See you.